Good morning. It's Saturday morning. I coming to you maybe early for a Saturday morning. It's not that early. 8:30. I thought it was early. When you don't get up till after 7, 8:30 is early, I guess. We're having a feed and a musicale at Victory Baptist Church tonight. We're going to eat at 5 o'clock, and then after that, we're going to go in the auditorium and have a song fest. And if you play and sing, bring your instruments and we'll have fun. I'm going to have fun no matter who comes. We'll hope we see you there. There's no cost or anything. You don't have to bring anything. Just come. I have to leave here in about an hour, a little over an hour. I'm going to do a program over at the Baptist Home this morning with Dr. Adrian. Do a little music for the prayer meeting they have on Saturday morning, the sweet hour of prayer. My eyes are a little wonky this morning, so you'll have to bear with me. To those of you who have been praying for me, I am not 100% well, but I haven't had any fever in a long time, and I'm getting a little stronger every day, so I appreciate your prayers. Chapter 11. We're in a parenthetical passage in the chronological narrative. We've had the 7 seals. We've had 6 of the 7 trumpets. And this is a parenthesis between the 6th and the 7th trumpet that began in chapter 9 of Revelation. It went through chapter 10 and it's going to go through most of chapter 11. It is to give information that has not henceforth been put forth, to catch the reader up with the story. It's a picture of some of what's going on the earth while the judgments are being rained down from heaven. The wrath of God upon a world that rebels. The church is in heaven. There are many saints upon the earth. They will all, except for a very small statistical minority, all will be killed. Because if you give your life to Christ after the rapture, the beast will hunt you down and kill you, the Antichrist. That's the system we're building right now with the high tech and the AI, so that he will be able to do that. We don't understand what we're doing as a society, but we're building the system that the Antichrist will use to enslave the people who are left behind. The only reason that people can't see that this is true is because we have a world that doesn't believe in God. So, we will look at chapter 11 between the 6th and the 7th trumpet. And there was given to me, John, a rod. I want to tell you that we've been on this chapter for several days. We'll be here several more. And there's a lot here. And if I look like I'm constipated, it's because my teeth are still a little tight on my gums. And it makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm getting used to it. It doesn't hurt as bad as it did. I'm talking better than I did. So, I'm glad for that. Good morning, Shana. Now, there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar, and them that worship therein, and the court which is without the temple, leave out, measure it not. For it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. And you say, there is no temple in Jerusalem. No, there isn't. But there will be. Or at least there will be the foundation of one and a tent for the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies. It'll be there because the Antichrist is going to set himself up in it and require that he be worshipped as God. This is not the temple, as I've taught you, that is described in Ezekiel 4-8. That is the 8th temple. The first temple Solomon built. The second temple Zerubbabel and Ezra and those guys built, and then Herod made a lot of improvements on. First temple was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. But there will be a temple also in the millennium, the 1,000-year kingdom under the reign of Jesus Christ. That is depicted and described in great detail in Ezekiel chapter 40-48. And I understand that Shanna is studying that with many things that are hard to understand for all of us. But the outline is there. The blueprint is there. But that's not this temple. This temple here is going to be built hastily sometime between now and 3.5 years into the rapture. The people there are already ready to build it. They have all the instruments. They've got a red heifer. They have to sacrifice a pure red heifer. They raised one in Texas. It's in Israel right now. To sanctify the temple and to anoint the altar. All of the instruments of the temple are ready. There are young Jewish men who are being trained right now to be priests. And all this is kind of kept under wraps, but it's real. It's true. It's going to happen. It won't take them long. And as I've explained to you, in order for the temple to function, all they have to have is an altar, and it could be a pop-up tent with sides, because the tabernacle was a tent. You could have a tent with sides that would represent the Holy of Holies, and the altar of incense. So you don't need much to start. And Ezra, Nehemiah, Zechariah, they are sacrificing at the temple when only the foundation was laid. That's all they had. No building. All they had was an altar and the foundation. And they began to sacrifice. So, don't let the time factor get in your way of believing the truth. It will come. Boy, it's really humid outside. My hair is just like sticking up. I don't know what the deal is. I look like alfalfa. Actually, I look more like buckwheat. I don't mean to anything negatory about that comparison. I just remember his hair and how it would stick up every which way on the little rascals. It's like my hair is. You know, it's one of those days where the temperature is going to read 90, but, you know, the heat index, the feels like temperature will be like 103. But I talked to Uncle Freddie, and they just about washed away down there at Junction. All those floods, of course, they're upriver with the big floods, but not that far upriver. And 24 inches of rain in Junction in 5 days. Junction is scrub oak and prickly pears. It's dry. It's I think their annual rainfall is something like 17 inches, and they got 24 inches in 5 days. So that would help recharge the aquifer, help the wells, fill up everybody's catch barrels. Uncle Freddie's got barrels for his trees. He lets the rain for the rainwater. And if they ever lose power, he can use that to flush the commode and bathe in if he has to. It'll boil. But anyway, enough of the weather report. I just happened to look up and see my hair sticking straight up, and I went, what a deal. I try not to look at myself much, but I have to look at myself to do this program because I have to see whether I'm in the camera or whether I'm off to the side. See, I have to keep looking so that I don't wander off screen. Good morning, Sandra. Looking forward to tonight at Victory. So this is the first half of the Great Tribulation is given unto the Gentiles. The holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. How's it given to the Gentiles if the Jews are there? Technically, the time of the Gentiles ended when Moshe Dayan took the Temple Mount between June the 4th and June the 6th, 1967. It is administered by Jordan, but only because Moshe said so. The people on top of that mount with guns are all IDF. So who controls the temples? By the time of the Gentiles are over, even though they're there. It was a deal that Dayan made to keep the peace and to end the war of 67. Good morning, Pastor Haroon. God bless you. So, there will be Gentiles trodden underfoot in Jerusalem, but Jerusalem's going to be happy about it. Why? Because they have their peace treaty. And they, of course, nearly will be destroyed in a war with their neighbors. And God will intervene and save them. But you see, the beast, the politician, the general that will become the Antichrist, he convinces the world that it is he who saved them. And he alone can do it. Only he. And you see how near we are. And so they let him do whatever he wants to do because he saved them and he's guaranteed their security and they're building their temple. They're all happy. Everything's wonderful. For 42 months, everything's wonderful for them. Not for all the world, but for them. Because that's where the beast is, and there's no war where the beast is. There's no famines, there's no floods, there's no earthquakes right there, you see. And so everybody feels like they're supernaturally protected. But at the end of the 42 months, as I've read to you 3 times so far, he will declare himself God. He will sit in the temple and demand that the Israelis worship him as a God. That's described in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We will go back there before we finish this chapter, but not right now. Verse 3, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses. We've been talking about them for 2 or 3 days now. I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days. That's 42 months. That's 3.5 years. 1260, 3.5, 40 and 2. It's all the same. 3.5 years. 1/2 of the complete 7-year period, which is declared and described in Daniel chapter 9. I've read you that many times. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the earth, the nation of Israel, representing the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. That is who they are. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. They have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. Good morning, daughter. Pastor Susie in Pakistan, and her husband, the dear Pastor Haroon, the great work that they do among the poorest of the poor in Pakistan. I promise you that Pastor Haroon has not bought a jet, and he's not on TV, on satellite. Every dime that you send them goes into the poor people in the streets of Lahore, Pakistan, and to taking the gospel, and occasionally a bowl of rice and beans or a blanket or a clean shirt to the people and the poorest of the poor. I don't have to worry about Pastor Haroon and Pastor Susie. I know what they're doing. I look at the pictures every day. They have church on Sunday. They have church during the week. I think they have church every day, because there are many days I just see them in the streets of Lahore preaching to people and inviting them to church. These have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over the waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And we discussed how they're doing the works of Elijah and the works of Moses. Yesterday, maybe it was the day before, but I think it was yesterday, that I told you the 4 major ideas of who these 2 witnesses are. They could be Elijah and Moses, somehow brought back from the dead. God can do anything. You know, a good example is Lazarus. He rose from the dead, but then he died again. Because the last time we see Lazarus, the Pharisees decide to kill him. Do you doubt this? You shouldn't. Chapter 12 of John. Then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. That happened in chapter 11. And there they made him a supper, and Martha served. But Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. And Mary took a pound of ointment, a spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. And then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief. The devil cometh not but to kill, to steal, and to destroy. Hey, I like it. I smiled without it hurting. And maybe the first time I smiled without it hurting since they put these things in Tuesday afternoon. I may live through this transition yet, to the dismay and displeasure of all my enemies. This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag and bare what was put therein. Then said Jesus, let her alone. Against the day of my burying hath she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. Much people of the Jews therefore knew that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might see Lazarus also, whom he had raised from the dead. Remember, there was a big crowd there the day that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, and they rolled back the stone, and he said, Lazarus, come forth, and he did. But the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death, because by the reason of him, many of the Jews went away and believed on Jesus. So the last thing we see about Lazarus is where he's getting his death sentence from the chief priests and the Pharisees. Hey, they caught Jesus. They took him to Pilate and crucified him. If they can catch Jesus, don't you think that they caught Lazarus too? We don't read anything about the second funeral of Lazarus, but it happened. So the idea of somebody being resurrected and then dying again, and it doesn't faze me at all because it happens in the Bible. The widow of Nain's son, the daughter of Jairus, Dorcas, the young man named Eutychus who fell from the upper loft at the preaching and was dead, and Paul brought him back to life. Well, all of these people had another death. They were just reprieved for a while, but not Jesus. Jesus is a unique resurrection. But so it could be Elijah and Moses. And then the other popular things, it could be Enoch and Elijah, because neither one of them died. They went straight up into heaven. And I told you that it balances out. There were two people who are going to go to hell without dying. At the end of the Battle of Armageddon, the beast and the false prophet are going to be cast alive into the lake of fire, which burneth with brimstone. So that doesn't faze me. The reason they say that people who hold this theory cling to it is because I say, for it is appointed unto man once to die, and after that to judgment. But I would point out to you in Revelation 4:1 and 1 Thessalonians 13 through 18 and 1 Corinthians 15, beginning with verse 51, there's going to be a day when millions of us are going to join Jesus in the clouds in the rapture, when he raptures the church, when he snatches it away, when he comes and rescues us from this present darkness. So there'll be a lot of people that are going to go to heaven without dying, all at one time. So the main argument for Enoch and Elijah falls apart on the surface. But that doesn't mean that the two witnesses aren't Enoch and Elijah. They could very well be. Another theory holds that it could be some unknown dude and John the Apostle, because there was a rumor that Jesus started about him. When he was rebuking Peter, Peter asked, well, what's this guy going to do? And Jesus tells Peter, he says, if I will that he tarry until I come, what is that to thee? You follow me. In other words, but the saying, the rumor went out that John wasn't going to die until Jesus came back. So there are some people who believe that that is true and that John did not die. We know that Domitian tried to kill him and boil him in oil, but it wouldn't work, and so they had to let him go. The executioner said the sentence had been fulfilled because they boiled him. It's not his fault that he didn't die, and they let him go. And he went back to Ephesus and ministered some in Smyrna, and he died an old man. That is how it goes. But some people don't believe that. They believe he's still alive and hiding in a cave somewhere, and he's going to come out and be one of the witnesses. I can't prove that's not true, but I don't believe it. And then there is probably a more likely scenario that it's just two guys. Who are these two guys? They're described, the qualities that they're going to have because the devil's going to be after them. So this is the qualities that you have to have for the devil to be after you during the Great Tribulation. And the dragon was wroth with the woman. This is in the next chapter, chapter 12, verse 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. You see, they will try to kill anybody who does this. So these two witnesses could be two guys. They got to be Jews. They got to be Christians. They're Messianic Jews because of the olive trees and the candlesticks. They have to be ethnic Jews. They have to be Jews through and through, but they have to believe in Jesus. They are Messianic Jews during the tribulation. And in their ministry, they keep the heat off of the people in the Grandma Revival and the people that the 144,000 revival and all of the millions that they bring to Christ. They're keeping the attention of the government and the beast, the Antichrist, the false prophet. They're keeping their attention on them in Jerusalem so that those other witnesses can run their course all over the world. And when all of them have died, then God lets the beast kill the two witnesses. Now, I told you yesterday I would tell you what I think. I have two ideas that I fall back and forth over the last 50-something years of believing. I believe that the internal evidence is stronger for Elijah and Moses to be the two witnesses, especially because the miracles they do are the miracles that Moses and Elijah did in their ministry. And because they're the two that appeared to Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration when he revealed himself in his glory to Peter, James, and John. But that alone does not prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that these two witnesses are Elijah and Moses. My second choice is that they would be just two guys, two Messianic Jews that God raises up at that time, in that day, just like he's always raised up people in that time and at that day. One more thing about Elijah and Moses. This is a fallback, and it's not a small thing. In Malachi, the last words, the last chapter of the Old Testament, we have a passage where it says, behold, verse 5, the last two verses in the Old Covenant, verse 5, Malachi chapter 4, behold, I send unto you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. And they say this proves that one of the two is Elijah. I mentioned the Mount of Transfiguration. And the disciples said, when they're coming back down the hill, the disciples said, well, what about the scribes say that Elijah has to come before the great and terrible day of the Lord? Verse 9, this is after Elijah and Moses appear to Jesus, and the three see them talking, and then they're gone, and it's just Jesus only. They've heard the voice of God from heaven saying, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. Verse 9, chapter 17, Matthew says, and as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, tell the vision to no man till the Son of Man be risen from the dead. And his disciples asked him, saying, why then say the scribes that Elijah must come first? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Elijah truly shall first come and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elijah is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall the Son of Man suffer of them. We look back in chapter 11 of Matthew. I'm a minority in this idea, so bear with me. I'm a minority in most things. Verse 2, chapter 11. Now when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and show John again those things which you do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. And as they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, What went ye out in the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before my face, which shall prepare thy way before me. Elijah did come. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. For from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, and if ye will receive it, this is Elijah, which was for to come. 3 chapters later, John the Baptist, Elijah, was beheaded. Back to chapter 17, coming down the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus explaining to the disciples. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Elijah truly shall first come and restore all things. Verse 12, But I say unto you that Elijah is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that Jesus spoke unto them of John the Baptist. So does this have to be Elijah and Moses, or Elijah and Enoch, or Elijah and anybody? No. Just because he did the miracles of Elijah doesn't mean it has to be Elijah. Jesus said he already came. Period. Mic drop. This separates me from many of my dispensational friends, many of my prophecy friends. Here's what I actually believe is most likely. Elijah and Moses, the most popular theory. The next most popular theory, Enoch and Elijah. A slightly popular theory, especially among people in Asia, is anybody and John the Apostle, who never died. And then there is a minority view. And I don't know how many people hold this. Matter of fact, I haven't read anybody who believes this, but this is what I think from what the scripture tells me. I believe that the 2 witnesses, the 2 olive trees, standing in the 2 golden candlesticks, the two olive trees who have the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. I believe that they are two mortal men who probably are alive right now and don't even know each other. But after the rapture, God will raise them up to this position of being witnesses. They're just two guys, just two Jews who will stand in the streets of Jerusalem for 3.5 years and preach against the government of Israel, who has married herself to this Antichrist. Only I can do it. I'm the one who saved you. Is any of this starting to sound familiar? I would be like washing my underwear and, cooking a pot of beans if I were you. I mean, get your bag packed, because the poop is about to hit the propeller. I believe that they are two men, Messianic Jews, that God raises up to preach in the streets of Jerusalem against their government, against the world, and against the God of this world, Satan the devil, who by now has taken complete possession of the politician whom the world will know as Antichrist. That's what Jimmy Harris thinks. If you want to think something else, you're free. This is not what my best friend in prophecy thinks, Brother James Akins. He believes it is Elijah and Moses. And I believed it was Elijah and Moses for most of my life. And even when I didn't, I preached that it was, because I couldn't prove it one way or the other. But this program here is to tell you what I think. And if I'm preaching in somebody else's church, I'm not going to disagree with them. It's their church. Because it doesn't have anything to do with your walk with God, your walk with Christ, your living and subjecting yourself to the lordship of Jesus. I don't like using that word because that gets mixed up with lordship salvation, which is a heresy. It's just what it is this modern Wesleyism as a second blessing holiness thing. Like, it means that through your own effort, you can make yourself more godly by fixing your eyes on Jesus and pretending that he is making you more godly, but you're really doing it yourself. It's straight out of hell, beloved. Don't fall for it. Lordship salvation is a curse and a bane and unto sanity, really. So that's not what I'm preaching here. So I believe these two witnesses are just two guys that God raises up in Jerusalem. They're in the first 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. And they are so mighty that the attention is fixed on them instead of on the massive evangelism that's going on during the Grand Mal Revival and during the revival of the 144,000 and the millions upon millions that are going to be saved. Verse 7, and when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth up out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. We'll learn a lot about the beast pretty soon. In chapter 13, verse 1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 horns, had 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns were 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. The same beast in chapter 17 when Babylon is fixing to be destroyed. Babylon, that great city. And the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Verse 8, chapter 17. And go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. It's going to be pretty mighty. He's going to come out of the abyss, the bottomless pit. Remember we talked about that? That's where Abaddon was. The commander of the locusts. The demonic locusts that have the stings in their tails like scorpions and torment men on the earth for 5 months and make them wish that they could die. But they don't die. It's the fifth trumpet, the first woe. When they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth up out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them. He shall overcome them and kill them. Back to Daniel again. You can't understand Revelation without having an intimate knowledge of Daniel. This talks about that same beast. Verse 20 of chapter 7. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other 2 which came up, before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. And I beheld, and the same horn made war against the saints, and prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days come, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. See, this isn't going to last forever. This persecution is not going to last forever. This tribulation is not going to last forever. As Jesus once says, the things concerning me have an end. This is not an open-ended purge of some kind. It has a beginning and it has an end, the tribulation. The tribulation begins with a covenant, a contract, a treaty between the one who will become the Antichrist, the beast, and Israel to preserve their security and allow them to rebuild their temple and to reinstitute the daily sacrifice, which he will in turn interrupt at the 3.5 year part, where we are right now. We're at that 3.5 year mark. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended up out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Are 2 guys. It's like 5 guys pizza. 2 guys. 2 guys matzah. How about that? I like matzo balls. I would have made a good Jew. I like pickled herring. I like dark rye. I like pumpernickel. I mean, I like all the stuff. There was a deli downtown in Houston. I forget the name of it. Maybe one of my Houston friends can remember. It was, I think it was on Capitol, but I'm not sure. But there was a Jewish deli, and of course that was the only kind back in the day. And Daddy would stop in there sometime for lunch if we were downtown, and we would get these corned beef sandwiches on homemade bread that was like, they were like that thick, you know. And I could only eat a half of one. And they had the pickles in the barrel, the giant pickles, you know. You'd take a kosher deal out of there. They would reach down there and grab you one. It was floating in the brine. You don't see that anymore. And all the meats and cheeses and everything they had, you know, they were hung up all behind them there in the cold case. It was pretty neat, you know, for a kid. I really liked that. Then shall they have finished, when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make a war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Are 2 guys. Verse 8, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. What is the great city? Well, they always call Jerusalem the great city. But then there is a verse that proves it. Antoine's That might be it, Shanna. Was that on Capitol? I may have my road wrong. It might have been on Polk. I knew it was somewhere downtown, kind of on the north end of downtown, because the times we went by there would be when he would go by City Hall, like to take out a permit for a job or something, for the electrical on a job. It might have Antoine's. That sounds really good. I mean, I suppose it could have been in the village, and I suppose I could have remembered when we went to, maybe when we went over there to get a permit. But I don't think so. I believe it was downtown. Antoine's may be it. I'll have to do some research on that. If I had a picture of me and Daddy there, I could tell you. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, Jerusalem. Then here comes the deal that proves it's Jerusalem they're talking about, which is spiritually is called Sodom in Egypt. That means it's really gotten evil, because he's thinking about Sodom and Gomorrah, and he's thinking about Egypt. Egypt represents a sin that you don't return to. Sodom represents a judgment that you can't escape from. Sodom, Gomorrah. Sodom is a judgment you cannot escape from. Egypt represents the sin that you don't want to go back to. Sodom represents hell. Egypt represents your old life before you got saved. It represents sin. Don't go back there. Don't go into Egypt. Don't go back into Egypt. All through the Old Testament, God is telling Israel, don't go back into Egypt. It said they sinned against God and they went back to Egypt in their hearts. When they returned to their sin, they returned to their life apart from God. So he's got, at this point in time, Jerusalem, the great city, is going to represent hell and sin. Why? Because the author of sin is going to be possessing the Antichrist, the beast, the ruler of the world at that time, and he's going to be in Jerusalem. That's why this is a big deal. That's why it takes place there. It doesn't take place in Paris. It doesn't take place in London or Rome. It doesn't take place. It doesn't take place in Tokyo. It takes place in Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the center of the world, according to God. And that's where he's going to be, and that's where he's going to judge at the end. The Battle of Armageddon is going to be just a few miles outside of Jerusalem to the north, the plain of Megiddo. Their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, Jerusalem, which is spiritually called Sodom, hell, and Egypt, our past sin, where also our Lord was crucified. And we know our Lord was crucified in Jerusalem. So, we know it's Jerusalem that is turned in to hell and sin under the reign of the Antichrist, whose capital is not Jerusalem. It's in Baghdad, by the way, but he's going to, after the first three, not Baghdad, Babylon. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations, everybody, they shall see their dead bodies for 3 days and a half. This usually really got me. They shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put into graves. How does all the people of the world see their bodies in the street? Well, it's easy now, but when I was a young Bible student in 1970, I couldn't figure it out. 1969, 1968, I couldn't figure it out. And then Elvis was live from Hawaii. And we saw him in Houston at the same time he was in Hawaii. And then Muhammad Ali, the Thriller in Manila, was on satellite. I saw him at the picture show at the same time the fight was going on the other side of the world in the Philippines. Satellite TV, satellite technology. The satellite will allow anything to be seen all over the world at the same time. You know, I grew up during the Vietnam War and came of age during the Vietnam War. And so what they would do is the stuff that we would see on TV on Walter Cronkite, you know, at 5:30 every night in Houston, 6:30 Eastern time. But we'd see it at 5:30 with Walter Cronkite. And it would be film that they took the day before and they flew it to Hawaii and then they flew it to LA and maybe they flew it to New York, but they had to get to the mainland United States to put it on the air. That was the technology that I was used to. And I would say, how are they going to see their bodies all over the earth? And now, you know, the satellite technology, they've been able to do that for a long time. But to go you want even better with digital technology, everybody's got, you know, their phone. I was looking for my phone. I'm talking into it. Everybody's got their phone. Everybody be taking a little movie. Nobody helps anybody anymore. They just take a picture of it. Those images will go all over the world in just a few minutes. They'll be viral. Millions upon millions, perhaps billions of views. Seeing these two dead prophets that are laying in the streets of Jerusalem. And tomorrow we'll talk about how happy they're going to be about it. And they are the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half and shall not suffer their bodies to be put in the grave. They're just going to leave them out there to rot and take a movie of it. And the whole world is watching it. Live coverage. The dead bodies of the prophets in the streets of Jerusalem. That's coming, folks. That's going to happen. That's pretty wild, isn't it? But that's what the Bible says is going to happen. I got to go. I got to leave here in 15 minutes to go to the Baptist home. I'm close to the Baptist home, but I don't want to take a chance on being late. I love you all. I will see you tomorrow. If you're in the Ozark area, come to Victory Baptist Church tonight at 5 for a feed and a song fest. See you.